Okay, good morning and welcome to Ag Talk in the Raw. Do like the Monday edition. I woke up this morning and I'm feeling like I actually should talk about finances on the farm before spring starts. I know there's a lot of tight times coming ahead, and there's tight times right now for some people, including, myself. And it's, generally our fault that we have these tight times. Fertilizer prices have climbed a little bit. Nitrogen's right around where it was last year, which is a blessing. Potash is climbing. Other elements. Lime is, depending on where you get it, can be anywhere from $4 a ton to $60 a ton. So, you just got to make some really good decisions at this point in the year, whether you're going to put that ton and a half to the acre, or if you're going to put, if you're going to go for that 250, 300 bushel to the acre corn, or you're going to tell your landlords, hey, and that landlord bit should be done right now already. If you're not working on it already, you should really be working pretty hard right now, is to tell your landlord that, hey, grain prices have fallen and we need to renegotiate our rental agreement. Renegotiating a rental agreement can result in probably three different things. One, an understanding rental agreement, a renter, landlord, and two, a belligerent asshole that will just tell you get off their land. They're going to rent it to so and so down the road for $10 an acre more, and then you'll see the land lay fallow for a year because so and so down the road is like doing the same thing. So I do have some tips for that. Get together with your neighbors. If you get along with the ones that you get along with. I mean, there's always a couple that you're not going to get along with, but go talk to your neighbors and say, hey, listen, we're all in the same boat here. It's sinking fast. We got corn that's under basis or at basis. We have above basis here on the East Coast. So even though it's above basis, it's still, we have higher rent, or not higher rent. We got high rent in some places, but we have higher taxes than the Midwestern section of the country. I'm talking, Iowa, Wisconsin, things like that. So land values are higher and the taxes are higher. On my house and acre and a half lot that I have here at where my house sits, my taxes are $6,100 a year. It's a lot of money for an acre and a half and a house. The other house is a little less, but not much. The farm, it's ridiculous. So I'm not even going to talk about that. But you really need to talk to your neighbors and say, hey, listen, let's come to an agreement here. We need to lower the rent on our land so that we can all survive together. And, if you get 4 or 5 guys that you're pretty close with, or that you feel would be an impact on the rental agreements, y'all kind of settle on a number that's, reasonable. It's like corn is in the shitter right now. Beans are going to follow. If you don't know this, beans are going to follow. Farmers are farmers. They're going to look at soybeans. They're like, ooh, I can get $10 a bushel for beans. So I'm going to cut out a couple 300 acres of corn, and I'm going to put that into soybeans, and that'll offset what I won't get for my corn. Or I'm not going to grow corn at all this year. I'm just going to put it all into soybeans. Okay, that works good if you got contracts and stuff, but the poor bastard that doesn't have contracts, he's going to, contract. If you contract it all, nobody contracts it all. If you contract it all, you're flirting with disaster. Just for the simple reason is, what happens if you have a drought or hail or something like that? I've had both on contracting. What I felt was 50% and still came up short on a contract, and that kind of puts a damper on the pamper, as you might say. So with guys that are going to be putting all this ground into soybeans, what do you think is going to happen? The price of beans is going to drop. it's just going to drop, especially at the in the fall when there's an abundance of beans rolling through there. These guys have paid $9-10 a bushel on contract, and then the guys that are waiting, or maybe the 50%ers, the 50% contractors, they get theirs filled, and then they've got beans that are only worth $6.57 a bushel. You really need to talk to your landlords and see if you can get that price reduced. I know there's some guys in this area that are paying $250 an acre for ground to grow corn and soybeans on, and I just don't see that that's going to work for them this year. The rent is too high. They need to get it down $100 an acre in order to make money, because we are dryland farmers here. There's no irrigation in my area. Down south there is in the vegetable growers, but not here. Nobody does it here. I'm a little bit tired. I just woke up. Teresa's still sleeping. And I'm a little congested for some reason. That wasn't like this when I woke up, so you just have to bear with me there. So in all, this leads down to your equipment and equipment purchases. I know there's been a lot of new equipment purchased in the last 5-6 years. It's been like the holy roller of agriculture in the last 4 or 5 years. There's been higher corn prices, higher wheat prices, higher soybean prices than there has been in the previous 10 years to that. So I've seen bins go up, I've seen legs go up, I've seen new tractors versus used tractors, and last year was kind of like a pucker tucker kind of year. Like, oh shit, I've got $500,000 worth of bins that I got to pay for with $3.30 corn, and $250 an acre rent. How the hell am I going to make my payments? So you muddle through, you talk to your banker, and you get shit, squared away, and possibly extend the loan, or, just somehow offset some of those costs. Or you're a dog running to the end of your leash, and that leash is getting mighty short, mighty quick. You've sold 90% of your corn, and you've still got half the year to go. That's where it's going to be. You got 90% of your corn and soybeans sold, and you got half a year to go, and the electric bill and the diesel bill is still got to get paid, and the equipment bill still got to get paid, your taxes, your rent, whatever it is, all has to get paid, and you have no way you're going to be able to pay for it because of your frivolous purchases. Now, I know I've bought some new equipment in the past, really nice stuff, the Krone baler, the New Holland balers, 2 of them in the last 5 years. When I bought the first really nice new Holland baler, that BB9080, the one that tried to kill me. That one, I don't like to kill that thing. That one was bought on $110 mulch hay, and $180 good hay, $200 good hay, and I was making both. The next one was still $105 a ton. But the price has come down. The next one, $95 a ton, but I couldn't stand that New Holland baler. It was no good, and I should have never bought that last New Holland baler that I had. I should have swapped over to Krone at that point. But then I was put between a rock and a hard place with the New Holland speed rower and that last New Holland baler. I had to get rid of both of them. They just had to go, and of course I bought the John Deere at a fair amount more money. I think it was like $30,000 more, $20,000 more by the time it was done. And the Krone baler was another, again, $25,000 more. So, you're looking at another $50,000 out of pocket expenses. And then in 2015, which was not the year I bought the Krone, that was the year I bought the John Deere windrower. That one, there were some issues with my ex-wife that cost a lot of money. Unforeseen issues, let's just call it that. Unforeseen expenses, which had put me in, not dire straits, but I was a little bit uncomfortable with the income that was coming in. And of course I got the new equipment to pay for and everything, and so things just mounted, and before you know it, you're like, oh, wait a minute, I can't purchase anything new. And then these awesome deals on 2 John Deere tractors come up, or a John Deere tractor comes up in the United Kingdom, and I flew over there, and not I didn't buy one tractor, I bought two tractors, and I had every intention of selling two of the older tractors to pay for the two newer tractors that I have. And wouldn't you know it, as I was gearing up to get rid of the two tractors, one of them broke down. The 4960 broke down, and I ended up taking the 8120, putting it onto that, and and then we just needed all the tractors. We did. I mean, comfort is key. The amount of work we were doing needed to be done comfortably, and the older tractors kind of sat there. The 4960 was broken down, so couldn't get into that. The 4450 was used a fair bit this year, but not like it had been relied on in years past. And so we had those issues, and I never did sell those tractors. So I've been paying the note at a very high rate of speed to get it paid off, and believe it or not, I worked really hard to get those tractors. I'm about 90% paid for on those. I had to kick back some cash from my operating loan, which is what I used to pay for the tractors. And I still have a little bit. I still have just a little bit, maybe 20,000 to go, 20 or 30,000 to go on those two tractors, and that isn't a phenomenal rate of payoff. But for the most part, if you're a grain farmer and you're looking at these prices, and me as a hay farmer, hay prices have plummeted. I can't get rid of this stuff in most cases. I've been fortunate enough to align myself with good mushroom companies that are still rocking and rolling right along, and I'm getting paid, and they're receiving the hay. So I'm okay this year. Next year's up in the air. I just got this sneaking suspicion that they're going to get this brilliant idea that there's too much hay on the market and they're going to need to drop the price. Well, if they drop the price, I'm going to have a problem. I'll be shifting some of my production over to another mushroom barn, which I know is going to be stable on price. But there's this one. It's just, what are we doing here? We were 110, and now they're buying $1 million loaders and equipment. They're spending millions and millions of dollars, and they're paying for it on my back. With hay equipment. So, they're paying for their equipment by not paying me hay for my hay, and my hay is barely paying the equipment payments. By the time it's all said and done. Now, mind you, I'm almost caught up on those tractors and everything, but still, there's that $160,000 fertilizer bill that needs to be paid here coming up pretty quickly, and I'll get it done. It's not like it's going to be that difficult to do it. It's just, what the hell, why am I fighting these? Why am I fighting this, this mushroom company to get more? I'm going to have to get more money out of them. That's all there is to it, and I think they're going to want to cut it. So that'll bring me down to equipment for planting corn and soybeans and things like that. If you, and this is on you, not me, I may plant corn, but my corn and soybean equipment is all paid for. It doesn't owe me anything, and it just sits in the building there. Start it up every once in a while, combine. The grain drill does need some work done to it if I decide to go back into soybean production. I do have some hay that I got to plant, so I got to work on it anyway. So I might as well spend the money and fix her up right so that it's ready to rock and roll. As far as corn and soybean prices, they're unstable, and to make a big purchase on a $300,000 tractor or a $150,000 corn planter, or God, don't even talk about a combine, $500,000. I think that the used market's going to be really strong for good reason. Anybody that's smart enough to tuck their tail in and conserve on their expenses. There's a lot. The repair shops are full with they're updating and upgrading tractors and corn planters and grain drills and air seeders and disc harrows and vertical tillage and chisel plows and all this other stuff are getting worked on pretty heavy this winter, because at least what I've been told. Now, I've been to the one dealer, and that lot is full of stuff that needs to be repaired. They're not buying new equipment. They're just tucking in and you guys or farmers in general in the United States are not buying new equipment because they see the writing on the wall. Now there's going to be that oddball idiot that buys a piece of land and goes out and buys all brand new equipment, spends $1.5 million on all brand new equipment, and decides he's going to rent ground away from hardworking American farmers, or local farmers or farmers in the area. And there's always going to be that guy. There's one right now. He's just dumber than a box of rocks, and he's bit off more than he could chew, and now he's going around trying to get other people to buy equipment to do the work that he needs to have done. Of course, he's going to lose in the end, and the writing's on the wall. But yeah, as far as seed costs haven't gone down, I know that for a fact. Soybeans used to buy it by the bag. It was a 50-pound bag of seed. Now you're buying it by the seed count, like it was with corn. I don't agree with that. I think it should be a per pound rate. Of course, bean size changes, and you get more in a 50. Sometimes you get more seed in a 50-pound bag than you do other times. It's all in the size of that bean. I mean, I've seen beans that look like cat's eye marbles. They're crazy. If you know what a cat's eye marble is, you'll know what I'm talking about. But yeah, so I think that today, in agriculture, it's a transition time. It's some of these, some of the guys that have bit off more than they can chew are going to be going either selling off their new equipment and downsizing to try to keep alive, while the bigger guys are going to be gobbling up those small parcels that they've given up. And that happens, and once you have to downsize, it's just, again, that dog running to the end of the leash. And then you're going to have the occasional dude that's still running 40/20s, and just chugging right along with 40/20s, and you're there in your fancy new tractor that you've paid, $150,000 for, and you're like, your used good tractor, fancy good tractor like myself. And you see the guy go with the 40/20. He's out there, he's freezing his balls off early in the spring, and he's freezing his balls off later in the fall. And in the summertime, he looks like Red Lobster commercial. And you're laughing at him, but, you're looking at him also, and you're thinking, maybe that's not such a bad way to do this. His overhead is nil, fuel, parts. And let's face it, 40/20s, you can get all the parts you want for them, and they're cheap as shit. You can go out and buy 10 40/20s for the price of one good used 8530, and you can rob parts from 4 of them to make the other 5 work, or 6 work, or whatever you got. And when you're done, you can spray them green and sell them for just as much, if not a little bit more, than what you paid for them. Whereas the big newer tractors that are nice and comfortable, it's a trade-off. Let's put it that way. You're limited in what you can do with the old 40/20s, but you're paid for. You're comfortable in your bank account. You can go do some other things, with the fancy new tractors, or recent tractors, I should call them, good used tractors and things, mowers. You can get a lot of work done. You can get a lot of stuff done. I mean, really phenomenal amounts of work done in these machines. They're comfortable to drive. They're comfortable to ride in. They're comfortable to be in for 10, 15, 20 hours a day. And yes, sometimes I've been in machines for 20 hours a day. I see Parker Schnabel up there digging for gold, and he's putting in 16-hour shifts, or whatever it is, and I'm like, well, that's kind of normal in the summertime. So, maybe a show about the American farmer should be a hay farmer, a grain farmer, a cattle farmer, a hog farmer, a chicken farmer. All should be on the Discovery Channel, and I would sign up for that. I think it would be totally awesome, and show the trials and tribulations of a dairy farmer. Oh, yeah, can't forget the dairy farmer. And those poor bastards. I mean, I feel bad for the dairy farmers. It's like national news. $22 a hundred less, and now the Kramers are pulling back premiums. My dad was at a meeting the other day. I couldn't go, and he's like, "Yeah, they've said the good thing about dairy farming is the price cannot get any lower than it is today." Well, holy hell! What about fertilizer? Fuel costs, fertilizer, seed costs, equipment costs. You're still milking cows. That equipment breaks, and milking equipment is damned expensive. So I feel really bad for the dairymen, and I wouldn't encourage them to get out of the dairy business. But man, do what you love. But if you love losing money on a daily basis, that's your prerogative. And that flashing is my computer screen going down. But anyway, so I guess the whole point of this video is be conservative this year. If your ground can't push to 300 bushels to the acre, or if it costs you, see, there's this law of diminishing return. You can grow 100 bushels of corn on 150 units of nitrogen, like 80 units of potash, and whatever phosphate you need. You don't really want to put too much phosphate down. Micronutrients and your pHs have to be just so. That's probably the cheapest and most profitable way to grow corn. Just at 150 bushels is very easy to obtain. Once you get push into that 200 bushel range, things get a little hokey. You're now putting 225 units of nitrogen or 250 units of nitrogen down, or maybe even more. At least I'm just quoting what we used to do here. We used to, 450 pounds of 10, 26, 26, 5, 2. 10, 26, 26, 2. That's what I used to put down in the row. 450 pounds in the row. I would offset the fertilizer opener about 8 inches from the row of corn, so not to burn the roots. And I would pump that fertilizer into the ground. It's right there, ready to go for it. I'm running 38-inch rows. That's what I was running. I'm sure 30-inch rows or 28-inch rows. It's a little bit 30-inch rows, 28 to 30-inch rows. Those guys, they can broadcast or put it in the center of the row. The corn plants will get it pretty easily. But once you go for that 250 to 300 bushel range, your inputs they don't equal the bushels that you're going to put in. It gets really expensive. You're actually going to double the amount of fertilizer you're going to put in there just to obtain that 300 bushel to the acre corn yield, 250 to 300 bushel corn yield. So instead of being 150 pounds of nitrogen to produce 150 bushels like I would have done years ago, maybe even a side dress of 10 units of nitrogen and then cultivate it in after, side dress and cultivate it, just work that soil a little bit and get some moisture back up in there in a dry year. But they're not doing that stuff anymore. So 450 units of nitrogen to attempt to get a 300 bushel yield. Now these numbers may be abstract and off the wall and may be completely wrong because I haven't grown corn now for a 3 years, but I'm pretty sure in this area that's what it would take. That's what it would take to get that 100. I don't think we could get 300 bushel to the acre corn. The best I've done is 222 bushels to the acre, and it was in a small field. It was an awesome yield. It was marginal ground, but the weather was just right. It was just perfect for what I had done. And yes, there was 250 units of nitrogen on that ground. The pH was where it belonged. 450 pounds of 10, 26, 26, 2. 2 is sulfur, if you don't know. And I produced really good corn. It was beautiful. The varieties you choose are key. I had good corn that year. It was really nice. But not every year you're going to get that. So just maybe, I'm not saying do this, but if you can talk to your landlord and get that rent rate down $100 from $250 to $150 or even $200, cut back your fertilizer inputs by a quarter, a quarter, it's going to save you immensely. And you're not going to be producing this high yielding crop, which is killing us anyway. Think about this. If everybody grew 150 bushels of the acre corn, there would be a demand for corn so great that you'd be getting $10 a bushel for your corn. These guys that are pushing to 300 bushels are short-changing themselves. It's costing them so much with the combines to handle it, the grain carts to handle it, the trucking to handle it, the tractors to pull the carts, everything, the equipment to get it in the ground. It's insane. But 150 bushels to the acre, you don't have to work so hard. price of corn will be really up there, but they're not going to do that. But anyways, that's just my thoughts. This last 5 minutes of this video are just my thoughts. Don't take it for gospel. Don't say, hey, one lonely farmer told us that we should all grow 150 bushels the acre corn. What an asshole. Well, if everybody grew 150 bushels the acre on corn, you'll be making more than you would at 300 bushels to the acre, because your inputs won't be as high. Your fertilizer costs, your rent may be the same, who knows, or higher, who knows, but your equipment won't be so high. You're not going to be pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing, and it's like a bodybuilder. You take a bodybuilder and he starts out, he can bench 150 pounds, but before you're done, he can bench 800 pounds. One little mistake, and he's back down to 400 pounds. That's it. It's like, oh my God, something cracked, and he'll never lift 800 pounds again. The max he'll ever be able to do is 400 pounds. And that's the way growing grain is. Just one little mistake or one little hiccup, and boom, your yield drops dramatically. On a 150 bushel yield, you can have those same variations, and it's not going to drop your yield 50 bushels or 90 bushels from 300 down to 210. At 150 bushels, you may lose a maximum of 10 bushels to the acre. So it's this law of diminishing return again. The farther you push it, the harder you push it, the bigger the consequences are in the end. If you take a variety that's comfortable at 250 bushels to the acre and push it to 300, yay, but again, it's comfortable at 250 bushels. But just put it this way, you take a variety that's comfortable at 250 bushels and you feed it like it's, you're going to produce 150 bushels. You may be surprised and pull a 190 on half the inputs or a quarter of the inputs that you put in to begin with. But anyways, that's enough of me yammering on. Hopefully you enjoyed this Ag Talk in a Raw. It's a little different, no political anything, even though the government needs to get their hands out of my pockets and your pockets and everybody's pockets. That's just my thoughts on that. Thanks for watching.